Hey guys, welcome to another weekly development tip with myself, Shane Gadd. So another wonderful subscriber question has come in. What is the best way to protect myself psychically? What is the best form of psychic protection? And I thought really hard about this question, not only now, but over the months and years that I've got asked this question, because I get asked this question a lot of the time, and I think it's a really important question. So as I say, I've thought about this a lot, especially over the kind of months and years of working in the way that I do, and I've come to one conclusion, and for me it's a very profound conclusion, that actually your best form of psychic protection is your attitude. Okay, so your best form of psychic protection is actually your attitude and how you approach all of this. So when I first developed, I started to develop in a development circle. I was having experiences outside of that, and many of you know I had some of my most profound experiences when I was a child. I didn't join up the dots till later on in life, as I got a little bit older, in my early 20s. But in my early 20s, I sat in a psychic development group, a mediumship development group, a circle at a local spiritualist church. And those of you that want to kind of explore a little bit more about that, is go and check out my video on the truth of 10 New Street, and that'll kind of go into the backstory, which is quite an interesting story. But I sat in this development circle at the local spiritualist church, and back then we were just kind of asked to sit, kind of go quiet, go into a meditative state and see what we sense, see what we feel. And I can remember back at that time of having experience of leaving that development circle, and thereafter, whenever I kind of went quiet or whenever I kind of closed my eyes, I would feel intense screaming. It was screaming of a little girl. It was really overwhelming. I could feel intense fire, and I got a real feeling of suffocation and burning. But whenever I went quiet, that feeling would wash over me. Not only would it wash over me, I could sense the sheer feeling of panic. Okay, and it was really overwhelming, to the point that I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't speak to anyone about it, and I lived with that for weeks. And I can remember, being in my early 20s as a young guy, thinking, what is going on? And you felt too stupid to kind of mention it or reach out or ask. Remember, we sat in development circle, and we were just told to kind of go quiet, see what you feel, see what you sense. I felt I couldn't really kind of, I felt stupid about it. But it was a real experience for me. It was a very powerful experience for me. And in many ways it was kind of quite crippling, because I was fearful in a way to go to sleep. So as a young guy in his early 20s, tough bravado in a way, trying to deal with a lot of sensitivity at the time anyway, I really didn't know what to do with this. So this continued. It would get less when I was kind of, around other people, or when I was kind of focused, or when I was in a way distracted. But as soon as I kind of went quiet, in it come. Now, one particular day, I remember randomly going to East Croydon in the UK here, not far from London, and I walked past this huge library and had this real pull, this real draw to go into the library. Went into the library, found the New Age section, thought, I'm obviously feeling very drawn here. As I walked towards it, there was this book that was hanging kind of off the shelf. And as I approached it, the book fell off the shelf and it kind of fell face down, and it kind of had opened, it had jammed itself with some pages open. So it kind of fell and it was spread open. Picked it up, turned it up, and in there was a chapter, an exercise, how to close your auric field. Okay, so how to open and close your auric field. And I thought, my gosh, this is maybe what I need. I went downstairs, kind lady photocopied it for me. I went back, followed the exercise, which was a visualization and which was of meditation, and how to close down your energy centers, how to close your chakra system. And I proceeded then to throw up. I was physically sick. And then I slept something like 14, 15, 16 hours. I remember it was all the way round the clock, so to speak. I woke up and there was just quiet. Now, the first time I woke up in weeks to experience a sense of quietness. Okay, so there was just this still quiet, there was peace. And did it really kind of dig in the importance of emotional kind of peace and emotional stillness? I really become very sensitized to the fact, very grateful, very appreciative to how much we take for granted, that kind of emotional peace and that emotional stillness. And then this kind of voice, and it was a female voice, that said to me, now you know the importance of closing down. And that has always kind of struck a chord with me, and that kind of exercise become an innate part of kind of how I worked for many years. I realised, and Spirit had said many times, what's more and far more important than kind of opening up is actually the ability to kind of close down. But importantly, underneath all of that is to ground yourself and place yourself back in the here and now. So as time went forwards, I really kind of understood the importance of a grounded attitude. Okay, I was kind of developing at a time where a lot of people around me were drinking kind of chamomile tea, eating just buckwheat, and I say that respectfully, but at the time, it kind of really didn't sit right with me. I kind of was looking for what was more of a grounded approach, and also the fact of being able to kind of fuse this together in a way that had a practical application to it, which to me, as I said, what drives contact the most is being able to move people forwards. So for me, it wasn't this kind of wanting to go off into that world and not being able to kind of bring anything back to grow calm with it. It had to have a kind of practical application. So groundedness become very, very important. And what I started to really understand was that your attitude is your greatest form of protection. And there's a few experiences along the way that have really enhanced that, and I'm going to share a couple with you. And one of them was an experience that my dad shared with me. And my dad's a Reiki master. He's a shiatsu practitioner. He's a therapist in many forms, and he has studied in depth in Peru shamanism. And he's had the honour and the kind of life-changing experience and the privilege to kind of study under authentic traditional Peruvian shaman in the mountains and also in the lowlands. And he shared an experience with me that when he was teaching Reiki overseas out in the Mediterranean, of a class and actually, I was a time after that or time before I had gone out with him, so I kind of understood a lot, and I could picture what he was saying. But it was a class of Reiki students that he was teaching, and it was above a room, a large room, a kind of up above a hotel, and you could see, you know, a long way out towards the kind of hills and out towards the coast. Beautiful environment. And I had this upper floor, large room, conference room, and they had everyone in a circle, and they were doing the initiations, the attunements to attune people into Reiki. And he said this energy, almost like it felt like as if it come through the room. So it come through the room, and it was moving around the room and pausing person by person. And it was like this heavy energy, this kind of dark energy, and Dad sensed that, and he sensed it come in, and it was as if it was moving around person by person and stopping by each person, and then it kind of hovered around this person, and this person at the time was very unsure. They're a very uncertain person. They were going through a lot within themselves. Naturally, innately, there was some anxiety to who they were as a person, and this kind of energy just kind of hovered around them. And Dad's intention was to kind of raise that energy, kind of almost just blanket it in light, if you like, and then that energy just darted back out the window. And one of the things that, you know, that he and myself, you know, really take from that, and take from some of the many other experiences we've had, is that what that energy does, you know, it kind of latches on to an uncertainty. It latches on to a fear. You know, fear feeds that type of energy. It just kind of brings it alive. It reinforces it. It brings more life to it, you know, because in a way, what it does is it preys on fear, which is why I say to you that your attitude is everything. That, you know, we should only be working in this way if we're feeling whole, complete, solid. You know, if there's a fragility and a vulnerability, then it's not the time to kind of be delving into the other world. Your attitude and where you find yourself is everything, and having a good, strong, solid sense of self is hugely important. And I can't say that strong enough. If you've got a kind of strong sense of self, then you're aware of what you're feeling around you. You also can discern what is your emotion, what is your feeling, and what is kind of you're coming into contact with, and then you can kind of root that. You can ground that. You know, and I say about kind of vulnerability, fragility, and fear. It kind of latches on because it's all to do with resonance, guys. You know, if you've got on that kind of scale of resonance, you've got love up the top here, and you've got hate at the bottom here, and you've got anger, what normally feels kind of anger, underneath that there is a fear. You know, quite often there's a fear. You know, what is over controlling behavior? Actually, there's a fear underneath it, or an insecurity, and that kind of energy can latch onto that so easily. So it's all to do with resonance. As you kind of move through the resonance, that energy cannot live around you or with you, because your resonance and your frequency, if you like, has changed. If you kind of want to explore a little bit more about that, check out on my video about Dr. Amuto. Okay, frequency and scales, everything. You know, Dr. Amuto done the experiments with the water molecules, and he looked at the people intention focusing on kind of goodness, greatness, love, kindness, compassion, and froze the water particles, and the molecules had these beautiful intricate patterns. When he looked at the opposite end, they were distorted. That sort of stuff really does kind of work on resonance and absolutely affects us. And why I say about vulnerability, when I had my second operation on my right leg, I was going through a very challenging time within my life. One of the most challenging I've ever been through, actually. Everything turned upside down, so all of what you hear me share over time is, coming from a place of direct experience. And believe me, I was absolutely on my knees with everything in my world at that time. And I was recovering, and I was laying in bed, and I felt this presence coming to the room. And there was this feeling of you stupid cripple, we've got you now. And I can remember sitting there and thinking to myself, oh my God, and suddenly this kind of this fear rose and began to rise in me, and then actually something switched in me, and I could feel another presence within the room, and there was this feeling of fortitude, almost defiance, this whole feeling of rising up, and actually it triggered a different response in me. And I kind of literally felt very, very determined, and actually it triggered a fighting determination in me to kind of get out of the space I was feeling, which is, at that point in time, I was feeling very fragile, very vulnerable, and almost feeling very, very kind of weak. I was vulnerable, that's the key word. And thereafter, I realised and really, really understood the importance of almost, grounding and exercise, physical exercise, because physical exercise thereafter was my rehabilitation. Physically was my rehabilitation, but not only did it kind of strengthen me at that level, it also strengthened me energetically, it strengthened me emotionally, it strengthened me in every way possible. And then from that, you do foster and you nurture an attitude, so those of you that are working as a therapist, as a healer, as a psychic, as a medium, even a card reader, is that I can't get across the importance of also physical exercise. I then found cycling again. It was a form of rehabilitation, but one thing I realised is that it creates movement. You're literally moving, but also you're moving the energy within the body. So anything that's kind of sticking, anything that's kind of heavy, anything that's kind of negative, literally just gets stripped away. It gets broken down, it becomes dissolved. At different times of my journey, I've followed and practiced Qigong. I've gone back to it recently, and again it kind of grounds you, brings you back into sense of self. It strengthens your body. You would have heard me also talk about Himalayan bath salts as well, because we in the line of work we do, or if you're hugely empathic and you're hugely sensitive, you're going to be absorbing energy. So it's about self-care. That's what we're really, really looking at. And throughout my journey, that has been a very, very, very powerful lesson. Is because when we're in a place of giving, it's easy to forget self, but actually self is hugely important. You can't truly give to another if you're running on empty. The way that I see this is about filling up and then allowing yourself to overflow, and it's that whole kind of sense of overflowing is what can pour out into the world and kind of touch and give to others. So it's that grounded approach. That's what we're looking at. So I believe that you know, your attitude is everything. It's looking at this from a multi-layered perspective. You know, so, you know, I was vulnerable, it preyed on the vulnerability. Any other time, I would have told it to just absolutely remove itself from my space. And the other thing I really want to talk about is, what are those energies? You know, I think that right now humanity is in crisis. Actually, it's in deep healing, about to heal some huge, very, very powerful wounds, because it's moving completely into crisis. When you move into crisis, healing can happen. But what you've got is a collective kind of chaos. There's a collective energy that absolutely is in chaos, that's in crisis. So you imagine all those people sitting there feeling lost, feeling empty, feeling confused, feeling traumatized, feeling sad. All of that has an emotional discharge to it. That emotional discharge becomes like a bubble of energy. Within that bubble of energy, it has a resonance. That resonance then lives within a resonance. So sometimes I think some of those kind of energies that appear in that way are like thought forms. They are emotions that then become a living, breathing energy of their own. It's almost like it has an intelligence of its own. And those of you that are unsure of that, go and check out Dr. Amuto water particle experiment. It will, in a way, bring some more perspective, more kind of lengthened and wider kind of insight to it. That's the word I was looking for, insight to it. It just kind of gives you another approach to it. You know, so really and truthfully, your attitude is everything. So, you know, like I say, is look where you are, check into where you are, how you're feeling. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you feeling strong and empowered? And that's going to change from day to day, week to week. We can't always feel on top of our game. You know, we are human. And when we're not, we need to nurture that. We need to be gentle with that. You know, we don't need to be Superman, Superwoman all of the time. That is unnatural. But when we are feeling a little bit kind of flat or a little bit empty, a little bit vulnerable, is okay, what are we doing to kind of take care of that? You know, what can we do to take care of that? And, you know, as I say, for me, it's a multi-layered approach, from the exercise, cycling. I spend a lot of time, as you know, out in the great outdoors. That also grounds me. It brings me back to my sense of self. You know, I've started again my qigong practice, and I'm going to share some techniques around that as we go forwards as well. I take those salt baths, and I strengthen myself physically and emotionally, and also become very aware of who is in my environment. And I think that that is absolute key. Again, I've just recently done a video about, if it isn't an absolute yes, then it's a no, which kind of digs into becoming the guardian of our own space, and checking into what is in our environment. Because, you know, if you've got people in your environment that are, you know, hugely negative, then that is going to have an effect on your energy. It's going to draw you down, which then becomes entry points. You know, all of this stuff, it can only latch on, if we look at resonance, if there's an entry point. So hopefully that stirred up a lot of thought for you as well. And remember, attitude is everything. You know, what are you saying to yourself in the conversations you have inwardly? How are you feeling about yourself? How are you thinking about the world around you? You know, attitude is everything in everything, and having a good, strong sense of self is the key to your psychic protection. Take care, guys. Speak soon. Bye-bye.